Good evening, and thanks for coming to the Muckletail Library tonight. My name is Walt Blackford. I work at Puget Sound Energy in the outreach function, and the programs that I run, like this one tonight, I put on in Snohomish County, where we have gas customers, and Whidbey and Skagit County, where we have electric customers. So tonight, this is a pretty high-level overview of our agenda. It pretty much follows the material that was distributed by the library. I want to first set out why we're here. We have a relationship, PSE and Sno-Isle Libraries. It's very complementary. We have information that we think the public would like to have and will benefit from. And Sno-Isle has these wonderful facilities throughout the two communities that we serve, Snohomish and Whidbey. So we struck a deal. We said, we'll bring the presentation if you provide the space and deliver the people. And it's working very well. Thank you. High-level overview for those who aren't familiar with Puget Sound Energy. It's a big company. We cover 10 counties, as you can see, from the border in the north all the way down past Olympia, and as far out to the east as Kittitas, Ellensburg. We have almost 2 million customers, broken down between electric customers and gas customers. In some areas, as you'll see by the color, the dark gold color, we serve both electric and gas in those areas, and only gas or only electric in the others. But it's a total of 4 million people that we serve. Only 2,700 employees, and they're stretched out, as you might guess, throughout the territory. Thank you. So I brought a video today. It's a video we produced. It's a little bit over dramatic, but I don't want to destroy the effect of it. So if we can figure out how to get the video started, this would be the time to do it.
It wasn't a daydream. It wasn't a
Hello? Sorry, my meeting ran late. I should be home in about a half an hour.
I wanted to grab it.
Sure, I can pick up dinner. What do you want? Hot and spicy. That's what I'm talking about. I will. I love you too. Whoa. Oh man. So that's what an airbag feels like. My car. Great. I should probably get out and see how bad the damage is. Wait. Are those telephone wires or power lines? Either way, they could be hot. No way to be sure. Don't take any chances. Just stay in the car and call 911. Good thing I actually paid attention during that safety meeting. Hi, this is Stephen Stonebanks. I've been in a car accident. I hit a power pole. I'm on Highway 18, somewhere east of the 356th Street exit, a couple of miles. No, I'm okay, but there are power lines on my car. Okay, yeah, I know. I won't move until you tell me that the line is de-energized. Yes, I will stay put. Okay, please hurry. Thank you. Honey? Listen. I've been in an accident. No, I'm fine. I hit a power pole. The car is a mess, but I'm okay. Yeah, I've called 911. They're on their way. Oh, no. Hey!
Are you okay?
Hey, stay back! No, don't come any closer. You could get shocked by the ground around these down power lines. Stay back about 35 feet and make sure no one else comes near.
Okay.
I've called 911. They're on their way. Thank you. Honey? No, I'm fine. No, don't worry. Yeah, the police are on their way. Yeah, all I've got to do now is sit and wait. Honey? I gotta call you back in a couple of minutes. Oh boy. Not good.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Plan B. Exit the vehicle. But now I gotta worry about touch potential. Touch potential is risk of electrocution based on one part of the body touching an energized object like a car while simultaneously touching the ground. Electricity flows from the vehicle through the body and into the ground, essentially making me into a human jumper cable, which would be bad. I gotta jump and land with both feet together. Whew! Okay. Now, step potential. Because the ground is energized, electrical current can travel through me if my feet aren't close together. Electrical current enters through one foot and out the other. The further apart my feet are, the greater my chances of getting shocked. So I must move away using short, shuffling steps. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. There you go. You got this, Steven. No large steps, just keep on shuffling. Every day I'm shuffling. Oh. I'm sorry, I can't come to the phone right now. I'm busy trying to stay alive at the moment. Almost there.
Hi, honey. No, everything's okay. No, nobody got hurt today. Well, except the, Remember how we were talking about getting me a new car?
So this slide, as you'll see, is sort of a summary of everything we just saw on that video, that wonderful video. And I have to tell you, that video has had an impact in the world, at least saved one life. We got a video, or we got a message from a mother and a child back east someplace, and the kid had seen it in his school or in the Boy Scouts or someplace. And the child wrote to us and said, if I hadn't seen that video, I wouldn't have known what to do when that happened, when a hot line fell on his car. The car he was in. So he was able to share that information with everybody else in the car. So that's worth doing the video. On this list, I would just point out a couple things. One, the video doesn't really emphasize is that it's best not to drive over a down power line, even though you might really need to get somewhere. The problem is not that the line will energize your car. The problem is that it might get tangled up in your wheels. And then you'll have the potential of pulling down the line or a whole pole. So better not to cross over lines if you can possibly avoid them. We talked about staying in your car. Some people about jumping away and landing with feet together. Some people have asked me, well, wouldn't it make more sense to land with your feet apart? And the advice I was given is that does increase the potential for that step potential that he talked about, that the electricity could be too much different between one foot and the other. So try and come down on both feet together. Next slide, please. So for those of you in the Snohomish area, as I said in the beginning, we do provide you with some customers with natural gas, not the whole county. And there's two big questions about gas safety. One is whether you can identify the odor, and two is what do you do if you smell it? So we can go to the next slide and it will reveal those answers. So there's three ways to detect natural gas. The most popular one, or the one that most people know about, is it smells bad. It smells like rotten eggs. And the chemical that we put into gas is called mercaptan, and that's why it smells. It wouldn't otherwise smell if we didn't put a chemical into it. There are other times, particularly if you're outside, if you heard a consistent hissing or very high-pitched whistle, that could indicate a puncture in a gas line, as could bubbles. If you saw a standing puddle and there were bubbles coming up inside and no other explanation, it could mean that below the puddle there's a open or a gas line with a hole in it. The most important thing to know about when you smell natural gas is to evacuate the building. There's no good reasons to stay inside, and you particularly don't want to do anything that might cause a spark or ignite the fumes. If they're of sufficient concentration, it could cause an explosion. Even flipping on a light switch could produce a spark. So best to evacuate the building, then call 911. Of course, they'll call PSE, but if you happen to know our number, it's 888-CALL-PSE. You could do that as well. And we'll send someone out immediately. And never worry about whether it's a false alarm. We'd rather come out and find out, oh, it's not really a problem, than have people not call. If you have a chance, if maybe you smell it and you're outside and you just want to restrict the flow, you can turn off your own gas meter if you know where the device is. But we don't recommend that you try and restart your gas. Better to call us and let us come and do that for you and make sure it's done correctly. Next, please. This time of year, wintertime, when there's likelihood of outages, carbon monoxide can become a problem inside the home because some of us bring in devices that combust, like our hibachis or a propane stove or a propane heater. And what we need to know about carbon monoxide is that it does not have an odor, and you cannot see it. And again, these are the key questions. You can't smell it, you can't see it. I'll explain in a minute how it gets into your home and what to do if you suspect it. So the main problem is carbon monoxide, I believe, constricts the access of oxygen to your cells. So it can cause brain damage in the worst case. In the shorter case, you could suffer some of these symptoms that are listed here: headache, weakness, dizziness. I mean, it can make you drowsy, might put you to sleep, in which case you're not in very good condition to exit the building. So hopefully you can catch it early in the process. Next. Here's a long list of the causes and how carbon monoxide can get into your home. As I said before, if you really are without electricity and you have no other way to cook, some people will do that, the charcoal inside the home or in a fireplace. Or they might bring a gasoline-powered generator into an enclosed area that will generate carbon monoxide, which could then go from a garage into a home. Definitely don't use your oven, if it's a gas oven, to try and heat the home, because that will send the fumes into your home rather than up the flue. So there's a number of reasons here why you don't want to use combustible gas-related appliances or devices in your home. When you suspect that someone has been poisoned with carbon monoxide, the first thing you want to do is get them into fresh air. If you have time, of course, throw all the windows open, but mostly it's important to get outside. Next. And then this, just to update on the law of the land. In Washington, carbon monoxide alarms are required in all new homes. Going back to 2013, the law required them to be added to certain multifamily condos, hotels, things like that. And then when it comes to owner-occupied, if it was occupied before 2009, you do not have to install the carbon monoxide detector until the home is sold. More safety. This has to do with all of the utilities that run underground, in whether it's Snohomish or Whidbey. Water lines, electric lines, gas lines, even telecom services. We, the utility industry and others, contribute into a fund which creates this organization called basically 811, Call Before You Dig. And if you have a plan to dig in your yard, maybe install a fence, put an addition on your home, anything that will, beyond the ordinary planting a plant, you really should call. And the reason you should call is because if there is damage, you will be held responsible, and as well as possibly cause more issues, more destruction or damage. But that's a free service. This one applies only to you folks in Snohomish, where you have gas service. although I do have some would-be areas that have gas provided by another company, so it's relevant there. From time to time, and this graphic I think captures it, the blue pipe represented in the graphic is your sewer line or your septic line, and the yellow that transects it, goes through it, would represent your natural gas line. And occasionally when the natural gas lines are installed, because they're drilled and bored underground, they don't trench it open, we push it through the ground, sometimes they'll intercept the septic system or the sewer pipe. And by itself, that's not such a problem, except when things start building up behind that blockage. And so you'll call your plumber and say, come and run your roto-rooter in my sewer because it's all clogged up. Well, I think most of the plumbers in this area are smart enough now to know that they shouldn't do the roto-rooter first. They should do a camera first. So it's important for customers like you to know that if you have a blockage in your sewer, tell your plumber, please check with a camera first, and then if he makes sure it's not caused by this is called a cross bore, then he can go ahead and do the rooter thing and get the other stuff out of there. Next. So a lot of what it's important in this part of the world is we have wind and we have trees. And most of the lines are above ground, and there's a good reason for lines being above ground. It starts with the fact that there are two kinds of lines. There are transmission lines, which are very high voltage, and then there are distribution lines, which are the lines that come out into your neighborhoods. But the transmission lines, being at high voltage, are very, very expensive to put underground. They require a lot more clearance on either side. They have to have special encasements. So it's just not cost effective. It would raise your rates extraordinarily to put all those underground. We do, however, put distribution lines underground when we can, especially in new construction. But these examples just show what can happen. These are probably all would-be photos, but it could happen just as well in Snohomish County. And Snohomish PUD would probably address the issue the same way we would. Next. This one you can't quite see here in the room, but on the video you should be able to tell there's a tree leaning against both the distribution lines at the lower level and the transmission lines at the top. And if we just go to the next one, that's also hard to see in here. But what it does show is that there are trees being held up by the lines. And in this case, we had installed what's called tree wire. And in corridors, which again on the video you'll be able to see better, narrow roads with trees right up to the edge of the road, it usually means that the property owners adjacent to the road would not give us permission to remove those trees. So it means it's an area that's more likely to experience outages. In those cases, to protect against branches that just fall off and might hit a line, we will put what's called tree wire, which means it's insulated, and so it won't knock the power out if a branch just hits it and falls off. On the other hand, tree wire is stronger, so if a tree falls on it, it could either just hang up there, or it could even bring down poles. We've had that happen where the wire is so strong it doesn't break. But the main story about restoration, and here's where Snohomish PUD and PSE might differ. PSE is guided by the Utilities Commission. We are required to operate according to the rules that they set for us. The Snohomish PUD is not private. It's a publicly owned, public entity run by a board of directors, so they can make their own rules. But I'm guessing that they follow pretty much the same standards that we would. So I'm going to tell you what PSE does in its electric territories. When there's an outage, let's just use an example that it's very windy and the storm persists. We know there's outages, but it's not safe yet to send out our crews because the trees are still falling. So there may be a delay between the time that we know about an outage and the time that we can actually go out and inspect the damage. But the first response we would have would be to send out what are called damage assessors. And their job is simply to drive up and down the roads that people have called in. That's an important myth to dispel. We do not know necessarily when your power goes out. if you don't call us, if you're a PSE customer, we wouldn't necessarily know your power's out. If 10 people call in a neighborhood, it really helps us calibrate where the outage has occurred. But someday there probably will be technology that allows us to know almost instantly who has power and who doesn't, but we're not there yet. Which is why the damage assessors are needed. We have a bunch of calls come in, we dispatch the assessors, they send in what their findings are in terms of how many poles are broken, how many lines are down, how many transformers have blown up. They send that into the Storm Center, and the Storm Center builds a list of priorities for the crews to go out and fix. The priority would be, first of all, restore the transmission lines because they serve the whole backbone, and then the substations because the rest of the lines can't work without those two pieces. Once they're in place, then we focus on the vulnerable and high value properties like jails and hospitals and schools, places where people need to be back up quickly. Beyond that, the guidance we have from the Utilities Commission is get the most people on in the shortest amount of time. So that explains why if you're on Whidbey and you live at the end of a long country road and there's only a few of you out there, you probably think you're always the last one, and you might be right. Because we're going to put on everybody else and work our way towards where the least number of people are. And that's just a function of it's not personal, it's not a vendetta against any of you, it's just your choice of where you chose to live. And we'll get to you as soon as we can. Thank you. Now, the transition here is pretty smooth. We've just talked about what happens when the power goes out. Now some people are going to say, well, shoot, if the power's going to go out, I want to have a generator to back things up. Go. And this brings us back to a safety moment, because generators they run on either propane or gasoline. Some can be, and you can also hook it up to natural gas, of course, but they generate carbon monoxide. So there's some concerns about where you locate your generator and where you operate it, which I'll get into a little bit during this section. The big picture, I guess, is, well, why would anybody ever need a generator? And we know that there are reasons why power goes out. Sometimes it isn't unexpected. Sometimes it's actually a plan because we have to do some upgrade to the system, and we just need to turn the power off long enough to make to put in new equipment and then put it back on, and you'd get advance notice. Other times you wouldn't. The key one here on this slide is the third bullet, I think, where people, if you know people who have medical conditions, friends, neighbors, whatever, I would counsel them to have a plan. Either have a backup power source if it's really a life or death situation, or definitely have a plan on where they can go when the power goes out and keep their medical devices functioning. The next level of consideration is, so you're out of power, and what is it that you want to be able to use when the power goes out? I listed furnace or heaters first just because there's a conversation to have there. If your home is heated by electricity, you won't have a heat source if the power's out. But you may have a backup. You may have a propane stove, you may have a wood stove, in which case you might not need a generator that's big enough to power your heaters. That's just sort of a first level consideration. Then the rest of this list, whether it's hot water or the refrigerator, freezer, certainly the fifth one down is if you're on a well or a septic system and you need a pump to make those things work, you probably want to have enough electricity to make sure that they will function during a power outage. The rest of the list is subject to personal preferences. Some people are going to want to power everything just like the outage hasn't occurred, and a lot of that will depend on your budget. Here's kind of where you would start. These are the minimal portable generators. The one on the top there is small enough you can actually just pick it up and carry it around. The others are on wheels. There's a whole longer story about how you connect them. Sometimes all you do is have a power cord and you hook up a few things just like an extension cord, but there would be a limit to how much you could plug into it. And you might spend as much as $5,000 just to have that capacity. The thing to remember is they can be heavy, so they have to be moved around. They sometimes have to be started with a pull, and if you don't think you have that capacity, then you want an automatic start or something that will start by pushing a button. Then if you have a bigger budget, like this guy did, you put in a big generator that will power your whole house, and it's permanent. And the next slide. And this isn't a terribly big generator, but it's a typical installation where the propane tanks are near the house, the generator has been moved away from the house. They can be set up to either start automatically. There's something called an automatic transfer switch that recognizes when the power goes out and immediately starts your generator, and that's an extra cost, of course. And there are other ways to set it up so that all you have to do is go out to your panel and flip a switch yourself, and that's called a manual transfer switch. And your electrician would explain that all to you. I should have said back at the slide where that listed all the reasons, the things you might power, is that your electrician would look at your list and say, all right, this takes that much energy and this takes that much energy, and therefore you need a generator of a certain size to be able to power all those things. And so that's an important step in the process that you'd have to take. And I think there's one more here. This is just an example, actually another one too, but this is an example of installing other equipment near a generator. It just makes it difficult to maintain or access in case you get into it. It might do damage to your DirecTV. And then this one is a good example of putting a generator right underneath a window. Even if the windows are closed, it doesn't mean that the carbon monoxide couldn't find its way into the building. If you're interested at all in generators, we do have a contractor referral program. Our contractors, they aren't PSE people, but they are people that we have relationships with. They will take responsibility from everything from the permitting to the installation. They'll give you the proper size and specifications to meet your needs. We also have a relationship with this credit union, Puget Sound Cooperative, and at last time I checked anyway, they would provide loans up to $35,000 at a reasonable interest rate. But the number to remember is the Energy Advisor line. They can direct you to the right source and provide the contractor referrals. So this is a little segue. We've talked about using energy, and now I'm going to talk to you about why we help you minimize or reduce the amount of energy you use. It's counterintuitive to a lot of people. Why would we not want to sell as much electricity as possible? Well, the simple explanation is it costs a lot more to build another power plant to meet a demand, to increasing demand, than it does to invest in your home or your business to reduce your load, your demand on the system. So let's go to the next slide. These are some examples from our PSE.com website, and if you were to go to PSE.com and talk about go to the savings in energy and rebates and offers, you would find a page that would have these blue tiles. For those of you watching on the video, you might not be able to read all those little numbers or descriptions, but we have lighting rebates and we have appliance programs and one for manufactured homes and winter water heating. So quite a few variations, but I'm only going to highlight a couple of them today. The one I'm going to highlight up there with the arrow is called the Home Print Assessment. The best thing about a home energy assessment is that it's free. It's a program that we offer for free. We select and train and certify contractors to go into your home, and they do a walkthrough. They use their checklist. They look, inside and outside at your doors and windows and any place that cool air might be getting in or hot air might be getting out. They'll give you a list of the things that would be most helpful in your particular case. So it's a custom report. It's not the same for everybody. And then they'll match whatever they find the need might be. They'll match that with the programs that we offer. And again, I have to remember that we're talking to both gas customers and electric customers, so this is available to both. That number, the 855 number, is a direct line to schedule the assessments. And in addition to the recommendations that you get, the report, for electric customers, we will replace up to 20 of the old incandescent bulbs. We will not replace CFLs with high efficiency LEDs, and the technicians will do that on the spot. It's an instant install. They won't just leave you with a box. So if you've got some hard to reach ones, they'll take care of that. And then the electric customers also will get shower heads and I believe aerators, and I think that's the extent of the installs for the gas customers, is the water related devices. Then on that original page with the blue tiles, I think I pointed out the manufactured home programs. While it's an economical housing option for a lot of people, they aren't always very well built. And so if you have not checked the weatherization or duct sealing or the insulation in your mobile home or your manufactured home, we do have programs, and we work with local agencies. On Whidbey, it's with the Opportunity Council. Here in Snohomish, it's the county Human Services Department has a program that works with energy assistance and around this kind of program. This one is a relatively new one. You know, it's a technological breakthrough, perhaps. It's now possible for you to put a thermostat in your home on your heater and be able to communicate it with it wherever you are, whether it's an app on your device or your computer at work. It can be set up so that you can control how warm and how cold your house is from a distance. The devices themselves, last time I checked, they run up to maybe $250. We will rebate $75 against certain selected models. And again, your starting point would either be here on PSE.com, which has a lot of details, or calling the Energy Advisor number that I gave you before. So that was a very quick, high-level pass at energy efficiency. I think maybe the point was made that there are a lot of options there, and well worth you checking it out. But it would also be a good time to tell you all about how you can do more of interactions with PSE online. I know a lot of people don't like calling and talking to somebody on the phone, so there are some things you can do directly yourself. And what we have is a program called myPSE, and it allows you to monitor either electric or gas by having an account. If you went to our homepage right now, it would look something like this, and there would be a chance for you to either log in as an account holder, or the arrow is pointing at the line that says create a new account. So if you pressed that, you'd get a form that looks like this. You will need your account number off of your bill, but otherwise it's pretty straightforward. Next. And then when you open up your account and go to the myPSE main page, you find out that, wow, I can pay my bill online, I can get details about my energy use, and in this case I'm selecting Energy Center because I want to get some information there. Next. This is the page, a part of that page, and the part I'm going to focus on first is this lower left. It talks about when is my energy being used. If you click on there, this is 1 month of usage. The bars are measured in kilowatt hours. This happens to be a colder time of the year from February to March. And you can see, if you could tell what the days of the week were, the higher bars are weekends. You know, it's when we have company, it's when we do the laundry, it's when we're both home and the house needs to be warmer. So that shows our pattern of usage. You would have a choice there of looking at it for a week, looking at up to 3 months, just to see if there are patterns. Particularly if you think you're getting a high bill, if you can go there first and solve the problem and you realize, oh yeah, that was the week that the relatives were here for Thanksgiving. Of course the bills are higher. The next one, please. And if you go back to that page before and you click on the Go, you can dig a little deeper. This is the first page that would come up. It's a comparative. again, through the video, you can see it much better than we can in the room, but it compares, in this case, me, this top bar, with my efficient neighbors, however they're defined, and then all my neighbors. And the way we do this, it's an algorithm that's been created based on information that customers have provided us. We have information from many customers on the size of the home and how many people live there and certain other uses, whether you have a hot tub, things like that. So we try to compare likes to likes. It doesn't always work out. In this case, I'm pretty happy because it shows me being a little bit better than the average of the efficient people. It doesn't always look like that. And some people get upset when they find this, that they compare poorly. And of course, we don't always know that there's 6 people living in your neighbor's house and only 1 of you in your house. And if it doesn't reflect that, then yeah, we get phone calls. Next, please. This just took that same information and set it out over a year. So it, in a 12-month period, it compares my use with my neighbors and the efficient neighbors. And then if I were to click on weather there at the bottom, this is probably one of the most valuable tools, because if your graph doesn't look pretty much like this, meaning when the temperatures are high, as you see in July, it was about 68 degrees, and my usage was very low. And then in December, where the temperatures were in the 40s and 30s, and my usage was very high. So that's how it should look. If you see a variation in that, then that's worth calling the energy advisor for. They can probably walk you through their process and find out why that might be happening. Sometimes it's just an additional electrical component you added. Hot tubs being the most obvious ones that people sometimes underestimate how much energy a hot tub's going to use. Next. Finally, I thought I'd leave you with this information about our outage map. And I know Snohomish PUD has an equivalent. So in the case of PSE, you would go to our homepage, and I believe it's under the outage information tab, you would find a chance to go to the outage map. Next. And you'd see this. This has happened to be a day where there weren't very many outages, but each little balloon on the map represents a discrete outage. There's a number there, 12, right around Tacoma. That means there's 12 outages, distinct outages within that area. If I were to click on the 12, it would break down, it would pull in closer on the map and show me where those 12 are. And you can see on the right that each bubble or balloon has a brief explanation of when the outage started and when the estimated restoration and what the status currently is. The arrow on the right is just a place where you can put in your zip code, because that'll pull the map more down to the area where you live. You can also put in your address if you just want to know whether you might be not at home and you want to find out if the power is out at home. Next, please. If I had put in my address, this is what might have come up. It shows that 7 customers are impacted. It looks like they're all in the same cul-de-sac. So some piece of equipment probably failed, and it's only affecting that small area. And as with most things, the arrow on the right shows that we have an app. So if you're not at home or your electricity is out, but you do have your personal device, if you clicked on there, it would take you to this page, and that shows you how, those links then would lead you to Google, Windows, and Apple app stores so you could download the apps onto your devices. Next. So, before I do that, I thought I would explain these 2 images behind me. These are 2 values that PSE really holds high: engaged in our community. This happens to be a day when a whole bunch of us, everyone in a green shirt is a PSE person, worked at a local food bank, creating boxes. The second visual here is a Lower Baker Dam up near Concrete on the Baker River. And it's one of our 2 large hydroelectric facilities. And it's really an example of how we are responsible environmental stewards. In this particular case, this device floating out here is very integral to our fisheries management. This happens to collect juvenile fish, the little guys who are trying to get downstream and would have a really hard time getting around this dam if we didn't collect them there, take them over here, put them on a truck, and have a truck bring them down to the bottom where they can be entered into the dam, into the stream again, without having to fall over this big high dam. But back to the closing slide, I just used this slide because it gives me a chance to talk about our avian protection program. It's very well regarded. This is certainly an example of where a pole that an eagle or an osprey might otherwise try and land on, we've given them a safe perch. So we will do that. We've also relocated nests. Sometimes different kinds of poles are big enough at the top that osprey will build a nest on our poles. We leave them there if we can. It doesn't always disrupt service, but if it's on a cell tower, if there are cellular equipment at the top, they typically want to remove them. So we will even put up a pole nearby with a platform and physically pick up the nest and move it. And the osprey, in this case, will most often accept that. Sometimes they'll rebuild in the same spot, but it works most of the time. And I think that'll do it. Thank you all for coming, and appreciate the Sno-Isle hosting this event. And for those of you who are watching online or any other way, I hope you got some value out of this, and tell all your friends to check it out. Thank you.